2024 NFL Mock Draft 1.0 is here, and I wanted to wait till after the Super Bowl to release my first mock draft, so here we are. We are going to dive right in. There will be no trades. This is a predictive mock of what I think will happen. So, guys, there's 32 picks, so let's go ahead and dive right in. The Bears are on the clock, and I think this pick is pretty simple. I will go, probably will go wire to wire and say that Caleb Williams will be the number one overall pick. I don't think the Bears are in a position where they can risk, possibly extending Justin Fields and missing out on Caleb Williams to extend Justin Fields and then to be wrong in that situation when this pick fell into their lap. So I do think Caleb Williams will be the number one overall pick. Washington is up. This is the first pick of a new regime, and contrary to what a lot of people may think, I don't think Washington's situation is all that bad. I mean, obviously it's not good, but they have a lot of draft capital. They have a lot of top 100 picks, and in order to start the rebuild, they are starting from the bottom. So how do you start the rebuild? Well, you go ahead and take the second best quarterback prospect available, and that is, to me, Drake May from North Carolina. There's been rumors recently that Drake May is falling down boards a little bit, which is not something I buy. Drake is a very, very good prospect, and I don't think there would be any reason for Drake to fall down boards. So Drake May, you are a Washington Commander in today's mock. Next up, the New England Patriots. Obviously, for most, at least a lot of people's lives watching, whenever you think of the Patriots, you think of the six-time champion New England Patriots who have had no business selecting in the top 5 of any NFL draft. And with Gerard Mayo taking over, I don't think they have intention to continuously pick in the top 5. And I think there is a high chance that this is the highest they'll pick in any draft in any of the next 4 or 5 years. And when they're up this high, I think you have to take your quarterback of the future. I know some people will probably say, if we take Jayden Daniels, the situation he's going to enter is not good and that they need a lot of help. Well, the good thing for New England is this receiving draft class is deep, and they can very easily help out their new franchise quarterback in the second round with a receiver. So Jayden Daniels is a Patriot. Next up, Arizona Cardinals. To be honest with you guys, I think at this point in time, the top 4 teams could change, of course, but I think the top 4 picks are set in stone, or at least to me they are. Again, teams could change, and I think the Cardinals would without a doubt sprint that pick in, and that would of course be Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin is an elite prospect. He is the best receiving prospect I've ever evaluated, and I can't wait to release a Marvin Harrison video breaking down everything he's good at, which is pretty much everything, and that will be out within the next couple of weeks, but I think there is a good chance that Marvin Harrison is an Arizona Cardinal. Now, the Chargers are in a weird situation. They have Jim Harbaugh now as the head coach, not that that's weird or anything, but you can make a case for a lot of guys here. You can make a case to draft Malik Nabers. You can make a case to draft Joe Alt. You can make a case to draft Rome Odunze if you want to get a good contested receiver for Justin Herbert to throw the ball to. Technically, you could make a case for Olu Fashanu, though I think the consensus, we're getting to the point where Joe Alt is above Olu Fashanu, at least to me he is. And I've seen a lot of people rank Joe Alt above Olu as well. But you can make a case for a lot of guys. But ultimately, I think the player we are going to go with in today's mock is tight end Brock Bowers. There is a chance the Chargers trade out of this pick, and like we said, we will go over teams where I think they could trade picks in today's mock, and I think there is a chance the Chargers trade back a couple of spots. If one of the quarterbacks were to fall, I mean, Atlanta's a prime candidate where LA could potentially say, look, we want another first-round pick. Here's your quarterback of the future waiting if one of the guys were to fall to pick 5, and I think there's a chance the Chargers could trade back 3 spots with Atlanta, get another first-round pick out of it, and still draft Brock Bowers. So I don't really think there's a bad choice for the Chargers selecting at number 5 overall. Now, next up is the New York Football Giants. Their situation is not good offensively. You can make a case for really any player here, and ultimately the guy we are going to go with is Malik Nabers. I love Malik Nabers. I think one of the biggest weaknesses in Malik Nabers' draft evaluation is being in the same class as Marvin Harrison Jr., because in almost any other class, maybe aside from the year Jamar Chase came out, of course, but Malik Nabers would be the number one receiver in pretty much any other draft class. Malik Nabers is elite. There's really no weaknesses in his game, and this would be getting, whether that long-term guy is Daniel Jones or whether that long-term quarterback is somebody else, well, they would be getting a good weapon in Malik Nabers. Now, out of, I would say, any of the picks here, maybe aside from Marv, just because he fell into the Cardinals' lap, I think this is the easiest pick in any mock. The Tennessee Titans did not have a good year in 2023 from an offensive line standpoint. They signed Andre Dillard in what was a gamble, and when you gamble on an offensive tackle, hoping that it works out, especially from a former first-round pick, a lot of the time it does not work out, especially to the deal they signed him to. It was very much a low-risk, high-reward potential there. Obviously, there was a chance for a low reward as well, and ultimately they received the low reward from Andre Dillard, and developmental tackle Jalen Duncan did not fare well either in his rookie year. So we're going to just, we're going to halt that, if you will, and draft Joe Alt. And when you have a left side of Joe Alt and Peter Skoronski, that's the start of the rebuild that I really like for the Titans. So, hopefully you have their quarterback of the future in Will Levis, but you do have your left side of the line figured out for the next several years. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons. And one thing that the Falcons have not done well over the past few years, aside from getting their top 8 draft picks to football consistently, shout out Arthur, is get after the quarterback. I think Dallas Turner is, I don't want to say underrated, but I think he's kind of underappreciated in this class. With how loaded this draft class is, it's kind of forgotten that Dallas Turner is still a very, very good prospect. And I mean, that kind of happens to Dallas, unless you are a Myles Garrett or Chase Young type prospect, which he's not, but he's still a very good edge rusher. But when you have Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers, Malik Nabers, and Joe Alt in the class, you're going to naturally be pushed down again unless you are that generational pass rusher. So Dallas Turner, not a generational pass rusher, but still a very, very good draft pick, and I think he is a top 10 prospect in this class. I like Dallas Turner a lot, and him going to Atlanta would solve a lot of problems for their pass rush. Now, the Bears are back on the clock. You just drafted Caleb Williams at number 1 overall, and what we are going to do with Caleb is not what we are going to do with Justin Fields, or not what we did with Justin Fields, and that's not give him any help. The Bears already have DJ Moore, of course. They have Cole Kmet, who I thought had a pretty solid year at the tight end position for the Bears. And what we are going to do here is we are going to give them Rome Odunze, and Caleb will walk into a situation with Shane Waldron as his offensive coordinator, DJ Moore as his number 1 receiver, and Rome Odunze as his number 2 receiver. And we are going to do everything we possibly can to ensure Caleb Williams does not fail at the NFL level, at least because of a supporting cast. So Rome Odunze is the Bears' second first-round pick of the mock draft. Now, this is a interesting situation here for the Jets because their season this year was a nightmare. But whether Rodgers played all 17 games or not, I think he was going to be running for his life like we saw Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle do at times. And it was because the offensive line is, not very good. And when you have a talent like Olu Fashanu fall into your laps, I don't think you are in a position to overthink that pick. So Olu Fashanu to the Jets is a pick I like a lot. And with Aaron Rodgers coming back next year, Olu being a better pass protector than he is a run blocker makes a lot of sense for the Jets. Everything aligns, and I like that. I like that team-to-player fit quite a bit. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings, and in a mock with no trades, I didn't want to force a quarterback here, whether it was Nix, Penix, or McCarthy, so we went with a defensive player, and the Minnesota Vikings defense from a personnel standpoint was not the best in 2023, which is kind of putting it mildly, and Johnny Newton is a very, very good defensive tackle prospect. Other candidates in this spot were Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, and of course both pass rushers in Jared Verse and Laiatu Latu. But when you can impact any game from the interior defensive line, that's going to inevitably mess a lot of opposing teams' game plans up. So I like Johnny Newton quite a bit here for the Vikings. Now, next up for the Broncos, this is a player that I think they would go with because they're not going to have Russell Wilson next year, or at least that's every intention that they have to release him and move on from him. As Sean Payton has said multiple times, he was not happy with them. They wanted to bench him this year, and because of the contract, because of the money that they were owed, that was a very, very ugly situation. So the Broncos defense played really well at times during the 2023 season. There was a span where they had, I want to say, 18 or 19 turnovers in 4 or 5 games. And if you can get your quarterback of the future, I mean, well, you can compete in the AFC, but that's a prerequisite for competing in the AFC. You have to have your guy, and Russell Wilson at this point in his career is obviously not the quarterback of the future for the Denver Broncos. So next up is the Las Vegas Raiders, and now that they have Antonio Pierce full-time, I think they're going to want to get back to an old-school style of football. I think they're going to want to smash mouth, run the football, and obviously play good defense with a defensive-minded coach in AP. And I think a guy that fits that profile for them quite a bit is Oregon State's Talisi Fuaga. If they bring Josh Jacobs back for 1 year, I don't want to say 2 years because that's an eternity at this point in Josh Jacobs' career as a sixth-year running back, but that can be the start of what you're looking for. Talisi is a great run blocker. I like him quite a bit, and I like we said with Olu at 10 with the Jets, I like this team-to-player fit. Next up is the New Orleans Saints. Again, another player and team fit that we like a lot. The Saints have a type on the defensive line. They like those heavy-handed guys. They have a Hall of Fame defensive lineman in Cam Jordan that can teach Jared Verse the tricks of the trade. I like Jared Verse a lot, and Jared Verse to me is kind of like Dallas Turner in that sense where he's a little underrated or underappreciated rather, just because of how many elite prospects there are in this class. So I like Jared Verse to the Saints quite a bit, and I think that's going to be I think that's a pick that makes a lot of sense. You took Brian Brzee last year in the first round, and if there's anything the Super Bowl showed, or the playoffs really showed, not just the Super Bowl, if you can dominate in the trenches, then you can not diminish, but you can make the gap smaller on the exterior. So for not just the Saints, but for a lot of other teams, build in the trenches if you were not already strong there. And I like Jared Verse to the Saints quite a bit. I think he could walk into 7 to 9 sacks as a rookie and, again, learn from Cam Jordan, which I think would be critical in his development as a player. Next up is the Indianapolis Colts. There's a lot of places we could go here. PFF has their number one team need as receiver. To be honest, I like Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. I mean, not that I think they're like a great duo or elite receiving duo, but I like them more than I would forcing a Brian Thomas at pick 15. Not that Brian Thomas is a bad prospect, because he's obviously not, but when you have a guy like Nate Wiggins right there, falls into your lap, you have to be able to defend or plan around defending CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence for presumably the next, I don't want to say decade, but, at least next 4 or 5 years, even though it could be decade. Let's go ahead and just draft a number one corner and not worry about that number one corner for the next couple of years. So Nate Wiggins to the Colts, like that pairing quite a bit. Now, another team that I like a pairing here, guys, I tweeted a clip about Jackson Powers Johnson a week or two before the Senior Bowl. He went down, blew up the Senior Bowl. The Seahawks have both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet as running backs, which they did not utilize anywhere close to what they wanted to be able to do in Charbonnet's rookie year. And if you have a road grader in Jackson Powers Johnson, that's going to make life a lot easier for everyone, and that's not just the running back's life easier either, that would also be the quarterback's life easier as well. So let's go ahead and figure out the center position for the next few years, not worry about it. And to me, Jackson Powers Johnson, JPJ, to me, he is a very high floor player. I don't want to say bust proof, but I like JPJ a lot, and I love the fit for him in Seattle. Next up, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Cooper DeJean falls into your lap, and we use the same thought process with the Colts, where you have to worry about CJ Stroud. In the Jags case, you have to worry about CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. I don't know if all 4 quarterbacks in this division are going to work out long term. I like all 4 of them, but the point is, you can never have enough corners, and Cooper DeJean opposite of Tyson Campbell would be, I would like that fit quite a bit. So if you have 2 corners in Jacksonville that you trust, it's a good start, and that's that's how we're going to try to get back to the postseason, which they missed this year. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals. Jonah Williams is a free agent, so let's go ahead and draft his effective replacement. Ironically, J.C. Latham went to the same college as Jonah Williams. I like J.C. quite a bit. There's flashes from J.C. that show he could be an elite tackle. Unfortunately, there's also some of the bottom or the low light reels that also show that J.C. could get beat quite a bit at the next level. But I like J.C. quite a bit. I think we will do a breakdown and a prospect video on J.C. and highlight the highs of highs and the lows of lows from him. But They need to replace Jonah Williams, as I don't think he's going to be retained, and JC will slide in as a right tackle in year one. Next up, Los Angeles Rams. They had a season, they overachieved big time this year. It was due in large part to the defensive line play by Kobe Turner, by Aaron Donald, of course, and the other pass rusher, Byron Young. So what are we going to do? Well, I gotta be honest, I am not the biggest fan of the value at some of the positions they need here. I'm not going to force a quarterback. I'm not going to force a Michael Penix to come in and back up Matt Stafford. So we are going to give them a hometown guy here in Laiatu Latu. And we're going to get after the quarterback next year with Latu, Donald, Young, and Kobe Turner, and make really every team that we play, make every opposing offense's life hell. So Laiatu Latu goes to the Rams, and I love that fit for them quite a bit. Next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you watch them at all this year, aside from quarterback play, one thing that they really need is corner. And I like Quinyon Mitchell's game a lot. There is talk that Quinyon could be the number one corner coming off the board. He is my third corner to come off the board in today's mock. But Quinyon Mitchell is a great prospect from Toledo, and I think he would instantly improve the Steelers' back end, which they desperately need. So now is a pick that I struggled with. I didn't know where to go with this pick in the mock. I wanted to go offensive line because the Dolphins have a couple free agents on the offensive line, most notably Connor Williams this year. And one prospect that I like, who I chose over Amarius Mims, despite him being a little lesser valued on the big board, is Troy Fontenot. I like Troy Fontenot a lot. I know he's the 4th-ranked tackle, but I think Fontenot will slide right inside to guard, and he reminds me of Tyler Smith from Tulsa a couple years ago, where he could be a good tackle at the NFL level, but a great guard, and we've seen that from Tyler Smith in his first 2 years with the Dallas Cowboys. So Troy Fontenot, like the versatility from him there, and I think he makes a lot of sense for the Miami Dolphins. Next up is the Philadelphia Eagles. They had 2 first-round picks last year, and when I was mocking them at pick 9, if Devin Witherspoon fell to them in mocks, which he did occasionally, he ended up going number 5 to the Seahawks, I would mock them Witherspoon, or I would mock them Christian Gonzalez, who ultimately fell number 17 to the Patriots. They didn't address corner this past year in the first round like I wanted them to, but we're not going to make that mistake again. Terrion Arnold, is a Philadelphia Eagle in today's mock. I think it makes a lot of sense. Terrion is a great cornerback prospect. He also addresses a need for the Eagles, and there was some consideration to take a receiver with everything that's going on around A.J. Brown and everything. Just we've seen some things in social media over the past few weeks, but I think corner is a much bigger need than it is potentially addressing a receiver that might not even be a need, if that makes sense. So Terrion Arnold is the Eagles' first-round pick this year, and we're not going to make that same mistake again. The Texans had one of the most successful seasons they could have ever asked for entering the 2023 season, and to me, this is kind of a luxury pick. It's at least where the value is pertaining to the board, and ultimately, we're going to give them Brian Thomas Jr. We're going to have a trio next year of Brian Thomas Jr., Nico Collins, and Tank Dell, and we're going to basically say to opposing defenses, stop us. CJ throwing to all 3 guys while they're all on rookie contracts. Nico's contract is coming to an expiration soon, but while Thomas, Dell, and Stroud are on the rookie contract, we're going to try and emulate what the Bengals did a couple of years ago when they had all of their guys on rookie contracts, and that ended up in a Super Bowl appearance. The Texans, unfortunately, this isn't a shot at them as much as it is kind of saying what happened. The Texans did not get in the red zone during the Ravens playoff game. Not to say that that means the season's a failure or anything crazy like that, but look, we're going to give CJ another weapon and, again, force defenses to be stressed out even more than they already are playing the Texans, and I like this pick and fit quite a bit. All right, next up is the Dallas Cowboys, and the uncertainty around the future of veteran Tyron Smith, to me, makes me think they should go offensive line, and I like Amarius Mims quite a bit. Amarius, the only real negative about him as a prospect is the amount of reps he had as a tackle for Georgia, but when Amarius was out there, he had a pressure allowed rate of around 1%, which is utterly insane, and NFL offensive linemen generally don't get close to that, and if they do, they are a first-team All-Pro. So I like Amarius quite a bit. The target is around 4 to 6% as a tackle, so if you're allowing a quarter of the pressures you should be allowed, you're a pretty good offensive lineman. And like we said with the Titans earlier, if we get that left side of the line down with Alt and Skoronski, well, we can do the same thing with Mims and with Tyler Smith as well. There is a chance Mims could kick inside and kick Tyler back out the tackle, but I like Amarius Mims. He's a great football player. Don't overthink it. He is a Dallas Cowboy. Next up, Green Bay Packers. They have a new defensive coordinator. Joe Barry was shown the door. I know a lot of Packers fans were happy about that. Their new DC runs a lot of man, and I like Ennis Rakestraw Jr. over Kool-Aid McKinstry in a man-to-man scheme and a primarily cover one scheme, so we are going to take Rakestraw over Kool-Aid there. And the thing is with the Packers, yes, they had a great year. Yes, they had a great 2023 draft. It looks more than ever that Jordan Love is the next franchise quarterback, but you still have to defend these guys 6 times a year. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Amon-Ra St. Brown, now Rome Odunze, and DJ Moore. Those guys aren't going anywhere. Do what you can to try and defend them. Ennis Rakestraw Jr. is a Packer, and that's a pick and a pairing that I like quite a bit. Now, the Bucs are up. There's a lot of places we could go here. Ultimately, we are going to go with Braylon Trice. I like Braylon quite a bit. He had 16 pressures in one game for Washington this year. 16 is utterly insane. I can't begin to tell you how just much of an outlier that is in what to even do that in one game. Braylon Trice, I like him quite a bit. The Bucs do need some help at edge. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has been a disappointing former first round pick. So we're going to go back to the well, hopefully bring Baker and Mike Evans back so we don't have to worry about a quarterback or receiver in the first round, and go get Braylon Trice. Now, there were several places we could go with the Cardinals here at pick 27, and with this rebuild, what I wanted to do was kind of go BPA. They have Marvin Harrison Jr. already. I wouldn't mind them going Troy Franklin to double down a receiver, but guys, the Cardinals' corners are not good. They need a lot of help there, and if you can have Kool-Aid McKinstry fall into your lap, I am all for that for Arizona at pick 27. Now, this one for me, for Buffalo, I think is a very easy pick. Gabe Davis is a free agent. I don't anticipate Buffalo paying Gabe Davis, and to be honest, I think that would be a pretty big mistake by Buffalo. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset the wide receiver contract scale with a rookie contract and bring in Troy Franklin. Troy is big, long, and athletic, and he's very fast, and he can stretch the defense vertically, and Diggs is starting to physically decline a little bit, and Diggs is not going to be the vertical stretcher that he has been in years past, that we've known and loved Diggs for over the past few years. So if we bring in Troy Franklin, that's going to alleviate some of the stress. And also on the rookie contract, we will still have Dalton Kincaid. So when you have 2 receiving options on those rookie contracts, given they've already paid Josh Allen, that's going to help out their Super Bowl window as much as we can. So I like Troy Franklin to the Bills quite a bit. Now for the Lions, guys, I desperately want to give them a corner. I really do. I don't think Kamari Lassiter is as good of a corner as Byron Murphy is as a defensive lineman, and they had Aleem McNeil have a good year this year. Obviously, they have Aiden Hutchinson, who finished second in the NFL in pressures this year. He had a phenomenal second year, but if you can control the trenches on the defensive side of the ball, which they did, they had a really good run defense this year, and at number 1 to be exact. But if you can still get after the passer from an interior standpoint and still have Aiden Hutchinson on the outside, the corners that they're going to have are going to have to be, or they can be a lesser quality, if that makes sense, because the guys are getting home that fast. And the thing is with the Lions, they have pick 61, but they also have pick 73 from the TJ Hawkinson trade. They also have a 4th round pick next year from the DeAndre Swift trade. So if they want to move up and potentially draft somebody in the middle of the 2nd round, maybe if TJ Tampa falls, maybe they can get him. They can still get Mike Sanders from Michigan, who I absolutely love. And Mike Sanders would definitely be a Dan Campbell player. But for the sake of this mock, we are going to give them Byron Murphy. Next up is the Baltimore Ravens. I would have loved to give them Troy Franklin. Unfortunately, he went off the board a few picks earlier. So what we are going to do is we are going to draft Jordan Morgan. Morgan Moses will be 34 this offseason. He has 1 year left on his deal. I think that's definitely a pick for tomorrow. We've seen the Ravens do this before with Trenton Simpson last year at linebacker, for example, to be the eventual successor to Patrick Queen. And there is a chance that Jordan Morgan could start as a rookie. So obviously, we watched the Super Bowl last night. We know that the Chiefs won. I'm not exactly sure why this wasn't updated. So we're going to draft. I mean, the Chiefs and 49ers picks do not overlap. It's not like the Chiefs are going to take the guy the 49ers are going to take. But the Chiefs just won the Super Bowl with what will probably equate to the worst supporting cast that Patrick Mahomes will ever have. At least that's my personal take on that. And we're going to give him a receiver. We know the struggles they had at times throughout the 2023 regular season, whether it was somebody like MVS dropping the ball against the Eagles, for example, or the whole Kadarius Toney saga. They're Super Bowl champions, so who cares at this point? But we are going to give them Ladd McConkey. Ladd is... He's a hard-working guy, lunch pail, crafty, sneaky fast, and you get where I'm going with that. But Ladd McConkey is a very, very good route runner, and I think he would fit like a glove in this offense. And at some point, you have to have a good receiving option outside of Rashee Rice to eventually be the successor to Travis Kelce, and I like Ladd McConkey in this offense quite a bit. Now, the one hole in the 49ers team, really two if you want to include corner, I think was right tackle all year. I like Tyler Guyton a lot as a prospect. I think there's high ceiling potential there, and we're going to go ahead and take Tyler Guyton. But that's going to wrap up today's mock, so hopefully you guys enjoyed, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 33% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the channel tremendously. So until next time, we will have a Caleb Williams video out Wednesday. Get excited, I know. Comment your favorite picks, your least favorite picks, and everything in between, and that will wrap up today's video. See you next time. Love you guys.